72 hours. That's the entire window Cardi B had between the moment she stood beside Stefon Diggs at his Mother's Day gathering and the moment the whole arrangement she thought she was building started cracking like glass under pressure. Because right here is where the ground shifts beneath an entire fan base. And right here is where the narrative implodes for one of the loudest love stories in the room. Strip this to the bone, pull back every layer, and look at what is actually sitting underneath. Because what looked like a soft reconciliation has now mutated into something the internet has decided to call a slow-motion humiliation, and the receipts are stacking up faster than her PR team can sweep them. Let me paint the picture from the first domino, because the order matters, and the order is where the wreckage starts to make sense. April 29th, Stefon Diggs opens his phone, pulls up his Snapchat, and types out one of those late-night declarations that always sound clever to the man writing them and never sound clever to anyone reading them. The caption reads, "Besides me effing with other bees, I'm actually a good guy." He stamps it. The best one if you ask him. End of the day, he's just a man for real. Press send. Now in a normal universe, that post evaporates into the swamp of forgotten Snapchats nobody saves. In this universe, it became the timestamp that detonated everything around him, because the women paying attention were not the ones he thought were paying attention, and the receipts the internet keeps in its back pocket never expire. The phrase, "effing with other bees," was not a confession to his fans. It was a confession on his girlfriend's calendar. And the girlfriend in question is not some quiet anonymous figure who can be hushed with a phone call. The girlfriend in question is Cardi B. Now drag the timeline forward 48 hours, and you start to see the wires connecting. He throws a Mother's Day event. She shows up. She stands beside him. She lets the cameras catch her in his orbit, signaling to every blog with a keyboard that whatever silence existed between them has been quietly buried, that the two of them are functioning again, that whatever storm pulled her back in February is past. The fans take that picture, frame it, and call it a reunion. They put bows on it. They write captions like, "They made it through." They turn that single public appearance into a victory lap for a love story they wanted to believe in. And then, because nothing in this saga ever waits more than a heartbeat, the parking lot video drops, and the bow falls off the box. You have probably seen the clip by now. The footage is grainy in the way every parking lot exposure is grainy. The audio is sharper than the visuals, because rage tends to travel louder than light. Cardi's voice is cracking through whoever was holding that camera, her sentences arriving in waves, every syllable carrying the weight of months of swallowed silence. The line that pierced the internet, the line that the comment sections kept replaying like a chorus, was the one where she snapped on him about his treatment of his other baby mother, telling him, in raw plain English, that he never carried that same energy of going off on the woman he made children with, even when he was the one going hungry. Read that again, slowly. She did not just check him for his behavior toward her. She checked him for his behavior toward another woman in his life. She used the comparison as a weapon, and she sharpened the edges with everything she had been holding back. That parking lot was not a fight. That parking lot was a verdict. So now the picture begins to shapeshift. The Mother's Day picture stops looking like a reunion. It starts looking like a snapshot taken between rounds of a fight nobody had told us was still going. Because if she was screaming in a parking lot in Maryland a few days after standing next to him at a public event, the public event was not closure. The public event was a stunt. The public event was a performance for an audience that wanted the love story more than the truth. And right behind that revelation, like a punch following a punch, comes the next chapter. The one nobody saw coming. The one that turned this entire episode from a private squabble into a culture-wide spectacle. He shows up at his daughter Peyton's first birthday party. He is supposed to. He should. The child is one. The child is real. The child did not choose any of this. The party is themed like a carnival, and the irony of that theme writes itself, because what unfolds at that gathering is a circus in the most literal definition of the word. He attends with the mother of that child, Kay Benji. They share the cameras. They share the cake. They share the gravity of a moment that, from the outside, photographs like a family. They share none of the body language that says they are a family. He keeps a buffer. He keeps an arm's length, and then some. He keeps that stiff posture of a man who knows there is a phone in every direction recording his every micro-gesture, and he knows that one wrong angle becomes tomorrow's headline. And tomorrow's headline arrives anyway, because that is how this works. The angles arrive. The captions arrive. The fans arrive. And every single one of them turns to Cardi. Now strip the moment to the bone and ask the question nobody wants to ask out loud. Where was she? Where was Cardi B in the universe at the exact second her boyfriend was standing under carnival decorations with another woman who carries his last name's energy through a baby that just turned 1? She was home. She was likely curled around her newborn son, a baby boy who is itself a fresh chapter in her life, watching a birthday she could not attend, for a child that is not hers, with a man who is supposed to be hers, beside a woman who used to be his, or maybe still is, depending on whose timeline you trust. The math of that situation cannot be sweetened. The optics of that situation cannot be edited in post. The internet did not need to invent a single thing to turn this into a story. The story walked itself onto every blog while Stefon stood 5 feet away from a camera and pretended 5 feet was enough distance to make the photograph harmless. Pull back another layer because the next piece is the piece that quietly tells the whole story. People magazine. The same People magazine that does not print speculation unless they are confident the speculation has receipts, drops a piece sourced from someone close to the situation. The source says Cardi pulled away from the drama in his orbit back in February. Not because she stopped caring. Not because she stopped loving him. Because she stopped trusting him. The source said she felt like things were moving behind her back. The source said she felt like she did not have the emotional capacity to keep fighting that fight. The source said she stepped back to focus on her tour, her children, her family, her sanity. Now read that sentence again with the weight it is carrying. She walked away because the air around him was too thick with tension to breathe. And then she walked back in anyway. That is not a love story. That is a tug-of-war between a woman's intuition and her affection. And right now the affection is winning, but the intuition is keeping score. Here is what tightens the spiral even more. Some of the loudest voices in the comment sections are calling out K. Benji for the choice she made about which child to put on the internet that week. She posted Peyton's first birthday, the daughter she shares with Stefon. She did not, according to the comment threads dragging her, post her son's birthday party that supposedly took place a few days before. Now, whether that detail is verified or whether it is comment section folklore, the truth is irrelevant to how the algorithm is treating it. The algorithm has already decided. The narrative has already crystallized. The interpretation in the streets is that one child got broadcast for the optics and another child got the silent treatment for the algorithm. And that interpretation, fair or unfair, is the kind of fuel that this kind of story drinks for energy. It does not need to be true. It only needs to be believable. And right now it is more than believable. Right now it is the only thing the comments want to talk about. But pull back even further and zoom out on the man at the center of this carnival, because his role in the equation is the one carrying all the weight. Stefon Diggs has multiple children with multiple women. That is not a rumor. That is a fact. And the question that splits every comment section right down the middle is the question of what kind of father he is supposed to be in a situation he built with his own hands. If he stays away from those birthdays, the same people roasting him today would roast him tomorrow for being absent. If he shows up to those birthdays, the same people defending him today would defend him tomorrow for being present. He is trapped in a no-win geometry of his own design, and the trap was set long before Cardi ever walked into the frame. He sleeps with the women. He helps create the children. He owes those children his presence. That is not a debate. That is the floor. The ceiling is whatever drama gets pinned onto him for honoring the floor. Now the layered cruelty of this whole thing is that Cardi knows it. She is not naive. She is not a stranger to the geography of complicated men. She has walked this exact terrain before with a different cast and a different ending, and she walked into this one with her eyes wide open. She knew the baby mothers. She knew the patterns. She knew the type. She entered the situation aware that the situation came with built-in chapters that nobody could redact. And she chose it anyway, because that is what love does to people whose intuition has been outvoted by their affection. The internet keeps insisting that she deserves better. The internet keeps insisting that she should walk away. But the internet does not get to vote on what she chooses, and right now she is choosing this. We do not have to like it. We do not have to understand it. We just have to watch it unfold. Strip the entire situation down to its skeleton, and what you are really looking at is a public figure choosing privacy in a relationship that the public refuses to allow her to keep private. She tries to walk away in February. The internet drags her back to the conversation in May. She shows up at a Mother's Day event, and the cameras turn it into a press release. She screams in a parking lot, and the recording turns it into a hearing. She stays quiet about a birthday party, and the comment sections turn the silence itself into a confession. Every move she makes, even the move of making no move at all, is being read like tea leaves by an audience that wants the next twist more than they want her piece. And right here is where the story takes its second pivot, because while the Cardi corner of the internet is busy unpacking parking lots and party guest lists, an entirely different corner is melting down over Big Latto. Quietly, almost in the background, the rapper known for not telling anybody anything she does not want them to know has crossed a threshold she had no plans of crossing publicly. The signs were there. She announced she was stepping back, said she was retiring from the noise, told her own audience to read between her lines without insisting they read every line out loud. And then, in a thank you video addressing her mother's event, a sound bled into the recording that was not part of the script, the soft, undeniable, unmistakable cry of a newborn. The internet heard it before she could turn the camera off. The internet always hears it. And just like that, the most quietly guarded pregnancy of the year became one of the loudest public births of the season, even though the woman in the center of it never confirmed a single thing. But here is where it gets uglier, because the internet does not know how to leave a private when alone. A blog, and you already know which kind of blog, fabricated a screenshot. They built a fake Instagram story that looked like Latto herself had posted a picture of a baby with a caption that read, "Yes, mother." They stitched it together to look authentic. They circulated it like a confirmed announcement. And they did all of this while the woman in question had not even told her own audience the gender, the name, or the date. That is when Latto lit up. That is when the silence broke. She came out swinging at the blog, telling them exactly why she had been keeping her life private, telling them that the post they manufactured was the entire reason she does not let strangers anywhere near her personal life. She called the energy weird. She called it obsessive. She called the post a counterfeit, because that is what it was. They printed a fake story about her child, and they did it on the same week she actually gave birth. The cruelty in the timing is the part you cannot scrub off. So now zoom back out, and look at the entire week as one weather pattern. On one side of the storm you have Cardi B watching the man she pulled back into her orbit show up to a birthday party with a different woman 3 days after he posted a Snapchat that all but confessed to his appetite for variety. On the other side of the storm you have Big Latto, fresh off a birth she did not announce, having to publicly correct a fabricated post that tried to steal the announcement out of her hands before she was ready to make one. Two women. Two completely different positions in their lives. Both finding out in the same week that the audience watching them does not respect the boundaries they tried to draw around their own private moments. That is not a coincidence. That is a pattern. That is what the spotlight does to women who keep producing things the spotlight wants. Children, music, tours, businesses. The bigger the output, the smaller the curtain. And inside that pattern, the conversation around Cardi and Stefon keeps multiplying, because every detail that drops adds another fork to the road. The fans split. One wing of the audience says she is wasting her crown on a man who is openly telegraphing his appetite. Another wing says the birthday party for a 1-year-old is the bare minimum of fatherhood, and that anybody making it weird is the one with the actual problem. A third wing says the parking lot fight is the part nobody is taking seriously enough, that screaming in public about a man's treatment of his other children is the sound of a woman whose patience has expired, but whose heart hasn't caught up yet. All three wings are partially right. All three wings are partially wrong. And all three wings keep refreshing their feeds waiting for the next clip to settle the argument they keep losing in their own minds. But strip the noise to its quietest layer, and the thing this whole episode is really revealing is something the gossip cycle hates to admit out loud. These are regular people doing regular people things in front of an irregular number of cameras. Stefon Diggs is not the first man to father multiple children with multiple women and end up in the awkward geometry of co-parenting birthdays. He is just one of the most visible. Cardi B is not the first woman to keep choosing a man she has every reason not to choose. She is just one of the most photographed. Benji is not the first mother to navigate a public co-parenting situation with a public partner. She is just one of the youngest doing it in real time on a feed she did not ask to be born into. The dynamics on display here have been playing out in apartment buildings, in family group chats, in restaurant booths, in courtroom hallways for as long as humans have been making other humans. The only thing different about this version is the bandwidth. Now read the comments, and you will see the projection screaming back at the screen. Half the people roasting Cardi for staying have stayed with their own version of Stefon Diggs at some point. Half the people dragging K. Benji for posting about her daughter and not her son have, somewhere on their own timeline, made a selective post that revealed more than they meant to. Half the people calling Stefon trash for attending his daughter's birthday with another woman around have their own baby fathers who would not have shown up at all, would not have brought a cake, would not have signed a card. The performance of moral outrage online is almost always cheaper than the practice of moral consistency offline, and right now the comment sections are the cheapest currency in circulation. And yet, even with all of that pulled apart, the question still sits in the middle of the room like an uninvited guest at the carnival. Is Cardi B okay? Not okay in the polished social media post sense. Okay in the quiet hours, in the after the camera clicks off sense. Because the version of her the internet sees is loud, defiant, unfiltered, untouchable. The version of her that lives behind that version has carried public miscarriages, public breakups, public reconciliations, public custody questions, public lawsuits, public tours, public motherhood, and now this. A public will the won't they that keeps detonating in slow motion every time the cameras find an angle. That is a load that would buckle a stadium of ordinary people. And she keeps standing in it. She keeps showing up to her own life. She keeps releasing music. She keeps raising her kids. She keeps walking into rooms full of cameras and acting like she has not just been screaming in a parking lot 4 hours earlier. That is not weakness. That is a kind of strength most of the people criticizing her have never had to test. But strength is not the same as health. Survival is not the same as thriving. And the version of love story Cardi is currently inside of is the version where the woman keeps absorbing impact and the man keeps testing the suspension. Eventually, one of two things happens. Either the suspension holds and the marriage of personalities locks in for the long haul, or the suspension fails and the wreckage spills onto a much bigger field than the one we are watching right now. The Snapchat caption was not a one-time slip. Snapchat captions like that are the surface tension of a pattern. The parking lot blow-up was not a one-time argument. Parking lot blow-ups like that are the symptom of a pressure that has been building behind the doors the public never gets to open. We are watching the steam. The fire is still indoors. And here is the part that no commentator wants to say to the camera, because it is not viral, it is not clean, it is not packageable into a 30-second clip. The reason this story keeps detonating across every platform is not because the people in it are villains. The reason it keeps detonating is because the people in it are mirrors. Everybody watching has known a Stefon. Everybody watching has been a Cardi. Everybody watching has either avoided or barely escaped a version of this exact dynamic somewhere in their own life. The reason the comments are so loud is because the audience is half watching, half remembering. The carnival theme at the birthday party was almost too on the nose. Because that is exactly what this whole arc has become. A public carnival ride built on private wreckage, and we are all paying admission with our attention. Now pivot back to Latto for a moment, because the closing chapter on her side of this week is the chapter that brings the whole thing full circle. Postpartum is not a punchline. It is not an aesthetic. It is not a brand collaboration. It is one of the hardest physiological and emotional reentries any human ever has to navigate. And it does not care what your net worth is, what your album release schedule is, what tour dates you have on the calendar, or how many fake Instagram stories a blog has cooked up about you. Hormones do not check the Forbes list. Sleep deprivation does not check the Billboard chart. The reason Latto came out swinging at that fake post is not just because the post itself was a violation. She came out swinging because she is in the most fragile, most powerful, most overwhelming chapter of her life, and somebody tried to write the chapter for her in a font she did not pick. Imagine being 4 days into motherhood, your album campaign still in motion, your tour calendar still demanding your face, and a stranger on the internet pretending to be you, posting a baby pretending to be yours. That is a kind of violation that the law has not even figured out how to name yet. And the response she gave is the response every woman in her position should be given the room to give. She did not apologize for being upset. She did not soften the edges of her anger to make it palatable for the people who wanted her to be palatable. She called the behavior weird and obsessed, because that is exactly what the behavior is. The internet does not own anybody's baby announcement. The internet does not own anybody's relationship status. The internet does not own anybody's body, anybody's grief, anybody's joy. And the more famous the woman, the harder she has to fight to keep that ownership in her own name. Latto is fighting that fight in real time, with a newborn in one arm and a microphone in the other, and the fact that she still had the energy to publicly clap back on the same week she delivered a child is the kind of detail that should be respected, not dissected. So now bring the whole week back into one frame and look at it sideways. A woman screaming in a parking lot. A man posting captions he should have left in the drafts. A first birthday party turned into a soft spectacle. A baby mother getting dragged for what she did and did not post. A second woman quietly giving birth while a blog tries to write the announcement for her. A third audience refreshing every feed for a verdict nobody is qualified to render. And underneath all of it, the same recurring undercurrent that almost every breaking celebrity story is secretly built on. Privacy versus performance, love versus optics, what is owed to the audience versus what is owed to the self. The week did not reveal anything new about the human condition. It just reorganized the same old contradictions and put new famous faces on them. And here is the closing thought, the one to sit with after the algorithm cools down and the next news cycle takes over. The version of this story that goes viral is the version where Cardi looks foolish and Stefon looks careless, and Biggie looks calculated and Latto looks petty. That is the cartoonish edit. That is the dumb edit. That is the edit that gets clicks. The truer version of this story is the version where Cardi is a woman fighting for a man she keeps choosing even when her own logic tells her to leave. Where Stefon is a man writing checks his behavior keeps cashing. Where Biggie is a young mother trying to raise a child in a spotlight she never signed up for. Where Latto is a new mother trying to keep one corner of her life safe from the blender. That edit will not trend. That edit does not turn into a thumbnail. That edit asks the audience to extend grace. And grace is the one currency the internet keeps pretending it has run out of. But pay attention to which edit you start believing, because the edit you believe is the edit that shapes the next clip you watch. If you decide Cardi is foolish, every move she makes from here will look foolish to you. If you decide Stefon is irredeemable, every birthday cake he shows up to will look like a trap. If you decide Biggie is calculating, every Instagram post she shares will look like a chess move. If you decide Latto is overreacting, every post she defends will look like a tantrum. The cast does not change. Only your filter does. And the filter you choose says more about the kind of audience you are becoming than it says about the people you are watching. So zoom out one final time. Two women, both in the spotlight, both navigating a week that revealed more about them than they wanted revealed. Two men, both at different ends of the conversation, one of them inhabiting the heart of the storm, and the other one mostly absent from the room, but still casting a shadow on it. One newborn whose first appearance was a cry caught in the background of a video. One 1-year-old whose first birthday became a national group project. One parking lot. One Snapchat caption. One fabricated screenshot. One People magazine source. One audience refreshing it all on a Sunday afternoon, looking for the next twist to confirm whatever they already decided to believe. That is the week. That is the carnival. That is the math nobody can balance because nobody is being asked to balance it. The only thing left to do is to keep our eyes open without letting them turn cynical, to watch without letting watching make us cruel, to extend the same patience to these public figures that we beg the world to extend to us when our own lives go sideways. Because the camera does not care about the truth. The camera cares about the angle. And the angle on this story is going to keep moving as long as the story keeps moving. The only thing that is going to remain still is what each of these people decides to do inside their own life when the camera finally turns away. Cardi will decide whether she stays or whether she walks. Stefon will decide whether he changes the pattern or doubles down on it. Biggie will decide which posts to make and which silences to keep. Latto will decide how loud to be about a chapter she clearly wanted to start quietly. And the audience will decide, one click at a time, whether to be a witness or a vulture. You already know which one this corner is choosing. Witnesses every time. Witnesses with receipts. Witnesses with patience. Witnesses with the kind of attention that respects the humanity at the center of the headline. Because at the end of all of this, after every parking lot screams itself out, and every birthday party packs up its decorations, and every fabricated screenshot gets called out, and every reconciliation either holds or collapses, the only thing that survives is the way we chose to watch it. The carnival eventually closes. The footage eventually ages. The captions eventually fade. But the way an audience treated the people inside the story sticks to that audience like a tattoo nobody asked for. So let this be the corner that treats them like people. Let this be the corner that asks the questions instead of writing the verdicts. Let this be the corner that drops the receipts without dropping the empathy. Because the day we stop carrying both at the same time is the day this whole genre of conversation stops being worth having at all. Now tell me where you stand. Tell me which edit you are running with. Tell me whether you think Cardi should keep choosing him or keep choosing herself. Tell me whether you think Stefon is showing up as a father or showing off as a man. Tell me whether you think Benji posted the way she posted out of love, out of strategy, or out of a young mother just trying to capture her daughter's first candle. Tell me whether you think Latto's response was overdue, on time, or beneath her platform. Drop your verdict, drop your nuance, drop your skepticism, drop your grace, drop whatever you are carrying. Because the comment section is where this whole carnival gets its last act, and we are not closing the ride until every voice gets a turn at the microphone. And while you are deciding what to type, remember one last thing. The receipts are still loading. The week is not finished. The parking lot was not the climax. The birthday party was not the climax. The Snapchat caption was not the climax. The fake screenshot was not the climax. Each of those was a foothill. The mountain is still ahead. Because every time a story like this opens this many doors at once, the next door always opens twice as loud. So bookmark this corner. Keep your notifications on. Keep your skepticism sharp and your empathy sharper. The next clip is already being filmed somewhere. The next caption is already being typed somewhere. The next blog is already being drafted somewhere. And when the next domino falls, we will be right back here, breaking it apart the same way. Receipts in one hand, grace in the other, eyes open, opinions ready, hearts intact. Because that is the only way to survive a news cycle this loud without becoming the worst version of the people watching it. And that, more than any parking lot, any birthday cake, any Snapchat caption, any fabricated screenshot, any People magazine source, any baby cry caught on tape, is the real story underneath the story. The cast keeps changing. The carnival keeps reopening. The audience is the only thing that has the chance to evolve. So evolve with me. Stay with me. Watch with me. And when the next twist drops, and you already know it is dropping, meet me right back here in this exact corner, and we will pick the receipts up where the algorithm tried to bury them. Until then, keep your eyes on the people, not the spectacle. The spectacle is loud, but the people are the part that matters. And the people in this story, every single one of them, are carrying more than the timeline is giving them credit for. But before you take it from here, sit with one more layer. Because the layer underneath everything I have just walked you through is the layer that almost nobody is willing to say out loud. The reason this week landed so hard is not because Stefon Diggs is uniquely flawed and not because Cardi B is uniquely loyal and not because Benji is uniquely strategic and not because Big Latto is uniquely private. The reason this week landed is because the algorithm has trained an entire generation of viewers to mistake celebrity drama for sociological case study, and an entire generation of celebrities to perform their private lives like episodic television because the engagement keeps the lights on. The dynamic is bigger than the four names attached to it. The dynamic is the industry. The dynamic is the platform. The dynamic is the way attention is currency, and the way currency demands inventory, and the way inventory eventually demands a parking lot moment, a Snapchat slip, a birthday photograph, a fabricated screenshot to keep the feed full. None of these people are villains. None of them are saints. All of them are caught in the same gravitational pull that any of us would be caught in if our private lives were given the same megawatt floodlight. And here is the wrinkle that turns this entire essay into a mirror instead of a microscope. The moment you finish watching this, you are going to scroll. The moment you scroll, the next piece of someone else's private wreckage will appear. The moment that wreckage appears, you will have the same choice you had at the top of this video. To watch with grace. To watch with cruelty. To watch with curiosity. To watch with judgment. To watch with empathy. To watch with the kind of attention that respects the human at the center of the headline. Or to watch with the kind of attention that turns the human into a meme. That choice belongs to you. It always has. And the longer this kind of conversation lives on the internet, the more it matters that you make that choice consciously instead of letting the algorithm make it for you. So carry this with you when you close the tab. The receipts are real, but the people are realer. The clips are loud, but the lives behind the clips are louder. The captions are sticky, but the consequences of the captions stick to actual human beings who do not get to log off when the day is done. Cardi has to wake up tomorrow inside her own decisions. Stefon has to wake up tomorrow inside his own patterns. Benji has to wake up tomorrow inside the choices she made about which photographs to share and which to hide. Lato has to wake up tomorrow with a newborn in one room and an album rollout in the other, and an entire internet still trying to invent posts she never made. None of them get to scroll past their own lives. We are the only ones with that luxury. So let us use it carefully. Let us use it kindly. Let us use it like people who know what it feels like to be the one being scrolled past, because somewhere on some other feed, on some other thread, in some other comment section, we already have been. And one more thing before you scroll, because the comment section deserves the question it has been circling around all week without anyone willing to write it down plainly. Why does Cardi keep choosing him? Why does any woman in any version of this story keep choosing the man whose pattern is written on the wall in handwriting she taught herself how to read? The easy answer is that love is dumb. The easy answer is that fame distorts judgment. The easy answer is that the public sees the version of him she sees in private and finds him repulsive while she finds him magnetic. But the harder answer, the one that lives under the easy answer like a basement under a basement, is that the woman in the middle of a story like this is rarely choosing the man. She is choosing a version of herself that she has not yet learned how to release. She is choosing the person she was when she met him. She is choosing the future she pictured before the receipts started arriving. She is choosing the love she invested before the interest rates of his behavior turned that investment underwater. She is not stupid. She is loyal to a calendar that already turned its page on her, and she is hoping the page turns back. That is not weakness. That is the way attachment works in human beings, famous or otherwise. And the audience screaming at her to leave is screaming at a woman whose departure date is on a clock that only she gets to read. We do not get to set that clock. We only get to respect it. Same applies to Lato. The reason she went off on the blog is not because she is thin-skinned. It is because that blog tried to set a clock she had not finished winding. The reason she will heal from this faster than the internet expects is the same reason she went off in the first place. She knows the value of authorship. She knows the difference between sharing a chapter and having a chapter stolen. And in a year where every famous woman is being asked to surrender the pen on her own story, she just publicly took the pen back. That is not pettiness. That is precedent. And other women watching will remember what that looked like the next time a fake screenshot tries to write their lives for them. That is the verdict from this corner. That is the read. That is the receipt. That is the carnival, fully unpacked, fully witnessed, fully held without being crushed. Now you take it from here.